Patrick Riggins Show. Call in now, 865-243-TALK. That's 243-8255. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
Welcome to the wild side of the radio dial. Or I guess more accurately, the wild hour of the radio. The hour a week where your rights are defended, your freedom is preserved, and your liberty is upheld. Each week we are fighting to ensure every person on this earth is recognized as being born with natural human rights. Among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Notice I said among those, meaning there are more than just those listed. Because as humans, we have total freedom as long as we are not infringing on another human's liberty. You are listening to us, that is, if you're using a radio, you are listening to us on 100.3 WNOX, the flagship station for the Patrick Riggins Show. But you aren't limited to the FM broadcast band. You can watch and listen to this show live via the WNOX website. Just bring up your web browser and type in WNOXFM.com. There, courtesy of the in-studio webcam, you can watch what is happening live in the studio as the show is broadcast over this station's 5-state coverage area. That internet address, again, is WNOXFM.com. And riding along with us, as he does each week, is our show producer, Tori.
Hello.
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 Did you, and do we want to announce what special day was yesterday for Tori?
Yeah, Eddie's already sent me through the ringer this morning, yeah. So.
Well, we'll announce it again. It was Tori's birthday.
I turned 27.
27 years old.
No, that's not right.
28 years old.
42.
42. Boy,
42.
yeah, you're 1 foot in the grave, aren't you?
Yeah, I feel like it today.
Tori's having a little fun today. If you've been watching, when I came into the studio, the broadcast part of it was dark.
I forgot to turn the lights on all day.
That's what it was. It wasn't that the lights were hurting your eyes, right?
Plus, I had a little special treat this morning on Beacon's show. Glasgow. I don't know if anybody knows who Glasgow is. Anybody left over from this morning show. He sung me happy birthday.
Really?
Yes, that was kind of special. I like Glasgow, so.
I'm not singing you happy birthday.
Oh, come on.
I could sing a happy birthday, Mr. Producer.
Oh, that just is going to... Oh, bad news. Thank you for messing up my sleep tonight.
That'll put a picture in your
You don't look
mind.
like Marilyn.
Yeah. Well, I could... Of course, we don't have hardly anybody watching, you know. We have tons of people listening, but if you're watching, you know, I could do a little of this.
That ain't right.
That's why you need to be watching at WNOXFM.com. So happy birthday, Tori.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it.
He is doing better now than he was this morning.
Yeah, it was just rough this morning. Had fun yesterday. It was rough this morning.
But you're coming along, and you just have this show to do, and then off to the races again.
Yeah. Pick up where I left off.
Why not? All right. Oh, do we have... There goes our background music.
Once again,
he's
I'm
coming
slow
along
today.
He's making it.
Old Uncle Joe's moving a little slow at the junction.
At the junction. Yes. Do you have the 3 chicks, too, or... Actually, there's 4, I guess, really. Wasn't there? There's 3.
I never understood. How was there a blonde, a redhead, and a brunette, and they were all 3 sisters?
Well, they have a big turnover in their postal service there.
And with that, I bow out.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for tuning in today. Again, this is the Patrick Riggins Show. Welcome to all the new listeners here as well. You're getting ready to hear more reason and logic in 1 hour than you'll hear all week long. That's what we do here. Defend the rights of us all, not through emotional persuasion. This show's appeal is that we use cold, consistent, logic and reason to make the argument for more individual freedom, more individual liberty, and consequently less power for the government. To start off the show this week, I would like to ask you a quick and telling question. A question that will immediately reveal to you the depth of your commitment to work on bringing this country back towards a more free nation. The question is, how many in this audience called their House or Senate representatives and complained about them voting for the FISA Act and the NDAA after I read the names of those representatives that did so 2 weeks ago? Now, you've had 2 weeks to do it. Now, in case you've forgotten, FISA and the NDAA are two blatantly unconstitutional pieces of legislation that were sneaked through Congress while everyone was distracted with the gun control and physical cliff BS. If you missed that show, you can go to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Patrick Riggins Show. There you can listen and hear the names of the congressional representatives that voted in favor of that legislation. Now, if your representative's name wasn't mentioned, then you should still call and thank them for standing up and voting against it. So, back to my question, though. How many of you called? 10? Maybe 50? Did you call? If not, why not? Are you waiting for someone else to hold your representatives responsible for taking this country down the road to tyranny? If you didn't call, then guess what? You're part of the problem. You're one of the silent sheep allowing the government to run roughshod over our Constitution and our rights as American citizens. And more importantly, our natural rights as humans on which this Constitution is based. The reason I list these people's names is not to bore you, it's to spur you to action. If your representative, either in the House or Senate, voted yes, then you need to be contacting their offices and voicing your disapproval. In addition, you need to be getting your friends and your neighbors and your family, anyone that agrees that we need to abide by the Constitution. You need to be making sure they contact these people as well. Only when Congress realizes it cannot get away with usurping the rights of Americans will it decide to stop passing unconstitutional legislation. All right, we're up on the first break of the Patrick Riggins Show already. That's how quickly the show goes by, so listen closely. We are coming up, let's see, we've got some information on government tyranny and, let's see, what's this other thing about? Oh, we'll talk about gun control again. That seems to be the big debate. This is Patrick Riggins. We'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Fighting for freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. The Patrick Riggins Show. Call in now at 865-243-8255. That's 243-TALK. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
Welcome back to the Patrick Riggins Show. The last man standing in between you and an increasingly tyrannical government. What's funny is when I say something like that, I frequently have people accuse me of exaggerating or blowing things out of proportion in order to make a point, or they think I'm some sort of conspiracy type person. Someone thinking government's out to get me. It's really none of those. Oh, Patrick, you may say, you're just being absurd. That's the polite remark I get when I'm at dinner parties, frequently from political type of people. Over the holidays, I'd get invited to, Tori, you go to these big parties, with all these people.
Yes.
Yes. And a frequent question I'd get is, what I plan on doing this next year, 2013, after the election's over. And I would always answer, with this type of government, I have enough material for a 24-hour network, 7 days a week for the whole year. 1 hour every week, that would be child's play. Not that I don't work and prepare for this hour. I do the best I can for you, the listening audience, of course. But with the government bent on dominating its population like this one seems to be, I'll always have something to talk about. I don't see government changing over to minding its own business anytime soon, mainly because it's packed with people who cannot do that. They can't mind their own business. But back to this whole governmental tyranny subject. Don't worry, I remember my place. I see Tori's over there. Is he going to pick this back up? Anyway, People say, Patrick, aren't you being a little absurd when you say this government's being tyrannical or that we're headed towards more tyranny? Well, the definition of tyranny is, well, there's a bunch of them out there, but one of them is absolute power, especially when exercised unjustly or cruelly. If you want power exercised unjustly, look no further than the federal government. If you, Joe or Jane citizen, do something wrong, well, you'll get the book thrown at you. If you're in government or have political connections, well, you'll get a totally different type of justice. That's the very definition of being unjust, unequal or unfair punishments. It happens all the time in this country. We complain about it, and sometimes we'll laugh about it. But yet we do nothing about it. And by doing nothing, we're helping push us towards even more of it, more tyranny, more do what the government says or else. It doesn't matter if you aren't hurting anyone. It doesn't matter if you're in the privacy of your own home. Do what the government says or else. I don't know how much more better of a definition of tyranny you could get.
Do it!
Do it!
Do it!
Because I say to. The only reason most people don't see it that way is that they've been conditioned to expect it. They're used to being screwed over, so they aren't shocked by it, and thus don't do anything to change it. Another definition of tyranny is a government in which a single ruler is vested with absolute power. Oh, Patrick, you say, we don't have that. We don't? How about when a president signs executive orders which carry the force of law? Is that not a ruler exercising absolute power? It's one person. Passing a law sounds like a ruler exercising power to me. By the way, executive orders are not found in the Constitution anywhere, so they are unconstitutional. Yet we as citizens sit out here and allow them. You can't really blame us, though. Congress sits there and does nothing either. I addressed this in my show last week, in case you missed it. If you want to hear that, you can go over to youtube.com/Patrick Riggins Show. There you can listen to all the past shows all the way up to this last week. If you miss anything or you want to hear something again, you can go over there and listen to it. Again, it's youtube.com/Patrick Riggins Show. How about another example of tyranny? How about a governmental agency making rules and regulations that carry the force of law, along with criminal charges and sentences for violating them? That's a government ruler issuing laws. Sounds like another ruler exercising power. In other words, tyranny. The King of England used to do this to us. Here's what we had to say about it. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out of their substance. Sounds like a typical government bureaucrat to me, harassing people and taking their property away from them, either through seizure or forfeiture, or any of the other numerous ways government can deprive you of your things. Here's another one. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation. For example, subjecting and even quoting, as in recent Supreme Court decisions, United Nations precepts. Something else we said about that: for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury. Hello, Patriot Act, the NDAA, FISA, just what I just talked about in the first segment. All covered here on this show within the last few weeks. Something else we had to say about it: for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses. Anyone heard of the government's policy on rendition? Again, discussed extensively on this show this past year. For taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments. Something the federal government has done for years, trying to overrule local and state governments. For suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. A good example of that's federal mandates. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny, already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely unparalleled in the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. To update this to modern day, we have the so-called War on Terror. He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. A good example of this is the fruitless war on drugs, a war that has killed many Americans, private citizens as well as those citizens in law enforcement, all in an effort to regulate the private behavior of the people of this country. He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us. The government is doing this every day, with the president leading the way. Something else that's been covered on this show. The government and the president are trying to divide this country, to have us all fighting between ourselves while they all sit back and ignore the Constitution. With us all blaming each other, no one is taking the time to look at what the government is doing and putting the blame where it belongs, on the president, on Congress, and on the bureaucracy. Something else we wrote about, in every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only with repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Does this not all describe the very government under which we now live? Is there anyone in this audience who cannot see how bad this government's become? And for those of you who haven't caught on yet, all of these quotes are from the Declaration of Independence. The people of this country found the very notion of an overbearing ruler intolerable, so much so they are willing to sign their own death warrant by signing their name on that document, the Declaration of Independence. They were, in essence, putting themselves to death should this not work out for us. Here are these people, these citizens of America, willing to make the ultimate sacrifice to break this country free of tyrannical rule. And today we can only manage at most, what? A few points over 50% in voter turnout. Look, just about everyone in Washington considers themselves part of some sort of ruling class over this country. And for some reason, a lot of us, common American citizens, consider them that way as well. It is almost like some people in this country, it's like they yearn for a king or queen, a royal family like they have in England. Barring this, though, they look at politicians as royalty. If you want evidence, look at this recent outcry over guns in our society. Columnists after columnists have been writing how government officials deserve protection. The president is much more valuable than you. His children are much more valuable than yours. Because of that, they deserve to be protected by people with guns. But you and your family don't deserve that same protection. You are expendable. You cannot be allowed to have a gun to provide protection. I mean, after all, if you die, who will notice? That's how they really think. Otherwise, why would they write this sort of tripe? That you aren't as loved and adored as these people, so therefore you don't rate on their scale. And if you live or die, they don't really care. This is what you're up against in this country. Sure, you should be able to sit back and have the government obey the Constitution, and thus, for the most part, leave you alone, but they aren't. If you think you shouldn't have to defend your rights, your natural human rights, then you're right, you shouldn't. But in the real world, you have to, or you're going to get run over by the system. Our founders warned us over and over about keeping tabs on the government, watching what is going on, staying involved, because if you don't, you're going to lose this country. If you don't want to participate, and by participate, I mean getting out there, running for office, or helping get good candidates in office. If you don't want to do that, then you have two choices. One, you can either live under the oppression that is going to continue to build, or two, you can move to another country. Those are your two choices should you make the decision to not and try and change things. Waiting for someone else to do it isn't going to work anymore. I'm sorry, but it has come to this. Our previous generations have dropped the ball and allowed the government to get out of control. and it's going to be up to us in this generation to rein it back in. Well, we're up on the second break here, the half-hour break. Patrick Riggin Show, running along here quickly. When we come back, we'll have a little bit about more information about gun control. You'll love this. Be sure and tune in after the break.
Well, pushing back his glasses, Sam says he was elected by the masses.
Fighting for freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. The Patrick Riggin Show. Call in now at 865-243-8255. That's 243-TALK. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
Anywho, getting back to the shoe, getting into this segment, I want to mention this story real quick because I covered this type of thing just last week. And again, if you're our Facebook fans, you saw this posted yesterday, again, on facebook.com/Patrick Riggin Show. One of the advantages to going to that Facebook page and hitting our like button is that you get updated on these stories and a little bit of my analysis on them throughout the week. And if you follow me on Twitter, you get pretty much the same thing. Our address there is easy. It's the little @ sign followed by Patrick Riggins. If you do a search on Twitter, you'll find it that way too. Getting back to the story, though, the school district of Philadelphia is defending its decision to scold and search an elementary school student who pulled out a paper gun in class. A paper gun. Now, if you look at the picture of this thing, it looks more like the cutout of the fat letter L. No, I don't know if it had any of the assault characteristics that would make it scary.
Yeah, I was wondering if it had the assault magazine with it.
Had the high cap.
Or was it made out of a magazine?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, the cutout, if you see a picture of it, it is a fat L. That's what it is. It doesn't even resemble a gun. A district spokesman said the school acted swiftly and appropriately when fifth grade student Melody Valentin, I guess that'd be Valentin, allegedly told classmates she had a handgun on her. Well, that was stupid to begin with, but Melody and her mother, Diana Kelly, deny she ever used the word handgun. Well, there you go. According to Kelly, Melody realized she had the paper gun with her and put it in her desk while preparing to throw it away. Melody's grandfather, a Marine specializing in firearms, reportedly gave it to her the day before. A classmate spotted the piece of paper and contacted administrators. There we go. Good brown shirt there. When you see your neighbor doing something that they shouldn't be, you immediately call the police and let them know.
Got to keep them kids safe from paper guns.
Yes. Rat out everybody you can. That's a good government person. That's what they want. Anyway, Melody told reporters, the administrator yelled at me and said I shouldn't have brought the gun to school, and I kept telling him it was a paper gun, but he wouldn't listen. A school district spokesman said the district acted within its guidelines in responding to the situation. After the incident, Melody has been taken out of school by her mother and will now be homeschooled. This student should have been homeschooled from the start, and this would have never happened. Government shouldn't be teaching our children anyway. There are too many ways politics can sneak into the system and screw things up, just like this very situation right here. By hyping this whole gun issue and making a big deal about having anything that even resembles a gun, the school system is indoctrinating a generation with the idea that guns are evil, that even being around one is bad, even seeing one is dangerous. Adolf Hitler knew having the government in charge of educating the children was necessary in order to carry his thinking into future generations. He once said, when one provokes in a child a fear of the dark, one awakens in him a feeling of atavistic dread. Thus, this child will be ruled all his life by this dread, whereas another child who has been intelligently brought up will be free of it. What he knew was that by getting to children early, by educating them in the way that the government saw fit, by putting in them the fears needed in order to further the goals of the government, that was the key to making changes in a society, to having people willingly give up their freedoms because they're being raised to fear them. and more importantly, to fear and chastise those who argue for freedom, who fight for the very thing they have been raised to despise. In later years, when these children are grown and willingly supporting the confiscation of the guns of the citizens of this country, cheering the incarceration of anyone caught with one, people will be asking themselves why. If you're in this audience, you'll be able to point back to these types of situations where the groundwork was being laid, where the children were being propagandized, and everyone sat back and complained. They didn't do anything about it. No, God forbid. I have a television show to watch. I have so many other things to do while the politically active liberal population of this country pressure schools and the government, even the citizens themselves, to toe the line and allow the government to make all the decisions that need to be made in your daily life. Let the government confiscate your rights and only allow you to possess the ones it grants you. And even then, only until it may decide to take them back. We have within this country those who are trying to sell the idea that our rights are derived in this fashion, that they're granted to us from government. And it's really the other way around. We are the ones in charge. That's how it works. Despite what liberals and government types would have you believe, this is why they find it so necessary to proselytize children into the religion of government. Government is the answer to all your problems. If you try and solve your problems yourself, well, there's just something wrong with you then. You want to be sure and stay away from people like that. They're plain weird or crazy. Either way, you should shun them, and even better, immediately point them out to someone in charge. Controlling the flow of information. This is how schools work to control your kids. You wonder why they come home with some of the outlandish liberal ideas they do? Well, just look no further than your government school. Do you actually believe a government school is going to teach a child you don't need government? That government isn't the answer to all their problems? The government is the provider, that government's a granter of wishes, the one who can make everything better. Why would they teach your child any different? Have you really stopped to think about that? You're trying to teach your child not to depend on government, not to buy into the belief that government is the answer to everything, yet you send them to a government school. So step number one, get your child out of the enemy's camp. Stop allowing your enemy to educate your children. And if you're fighting against more government, more overreaching from Washington, then yes, the government is your enemy. All right, we're up on the last break here on the Patrick Riggin Show. Yeah, we ran a little over. When we come back, it may be a little short, but we will be back after these messages.
Breaking the law, 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 breaking the law.
Fighting for freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. The Patrick Riggin Show. Call in now at 865-243-8255. That's 243-TALK. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
Welcome back to the Patrick Riggin Show. We come in a little earlier, but Tori's playing the air guitar.
Rock pose.
Little Detroit Rock City. Get up.
Hey, if I can't be a rock star, I can at least look like one.
You are a rock star.
Mediocre rock star.
Well, you're further along than I am. Because number one, you got to know how to play an instrument.
Well, yeah, that does help.
Yeah, and
I don't know, with today's music, I don't think that's really something you have to have nowadays.
We can correct that in the studio.
We can correct that, yeah. We have machines.
The technology. And
we can fix him. We can rebuild him or her.
Lacking that, we've got studio musicians that can do it. Just stand up there and act like you're strumming the guitar.
Yeah, like One Direction. Oh, hope Candace was listening.
Anyway. All right. Well, welcome back to the Patrick Riggin Show. We're up on the last segment of the show, an hour that just flies by. And that's a good thing in that you're being entertained and informed. The hour dragged by, to use a proper English there, drugged by. If the hour dragged by, then you would know you're just being bored to death. And you'd think, that guy's not using good grammar as well. Oh, yes, I'm one of those people. Right. Anyway, I want to cover this segment just real quick. What I think is going to happen in this country, because it's just inevitable. If you look, when we run out of money, that is, when our currency becomes worthless because we've printed so much of it with nothing to back it, I think our government will start to drastically shrink, and as it does, it'll start to fight back like any organism that is dying. Like a drowning swimmer, it'll fight to keep its head afloat. And anyone or anything that tries to save it, it'll end up trying to drown too. When you take a life-saving class, you learn that you might have to fight this panicked, drowning person a little bit to gain control, because this person will try to climb on top of you trying to save themselves. And if you don't get them under control, you'll both end up dead. Unfortunately, I think the government's too big for anyone to save. Any one thing approaching will be pulled under. Any government, any organization, anything. So everyone will step back and just watch it go underwater. All the people who depend on government for handouts, they're not going to understand why they no longer are being carried by society. Just look at Greece, where people protest in the streets demanding money, but there is no money. But they want it anyway. It's like they don't want to hear the truth. And that is what we have. Well, we're going to have here in this country. We'll have what you see during a disaster situation. A lot of people will be helpless, wandering around trying to find government help, only there won't be any. The good thing is Americans are, at their core, a very caring people. We really do take care of others really well. We are constantly at the top of the list of the amount of money given to charities. And that doesn't even count the little things we do for each other, like mowing the lawn of the lady whose husband died and she's too poor to pay someone to do it, or picking up some extra groceries for the family down the street that's fallen on hard times, or helping make a child's Christmas by buying a couple extra toys so they can have something under the tree. And we gladly do those as Americans, we do that for people who are truly in need. But all those people who are just lazy, now they're going to be in for a shock, because all these caring Americans aren't too receptive to working themselves to death just so you don't have to. Those types of people are either going to have to get to work, or they're going to start getting hungry and probably realistically do something stupid that's going to get them killed. Either way, the problem we solve for them, and really society. Now, if we play our cards correctly and have put good libertarian type people into government, then we will actually emerge from this contraction with more freedom and liberty, an actual free market, instead of what we have now, which is crony capitalism, the government picking winners and losers. If we haven't put these good libertarian type people in government, then we'll see more governmental control. But it'll only be temporary, because we don't have the money, and government cannot survive without money. That's its lifeblood. As I've noted before, our lifeblood as humans isn't money. It's food and water. And we'll always be able to provide that for ourselves. Those of us who are willing to work, that is. And I would wager that's a large part of this audience in those numbers. Now, we'll be able to survive, like I said, because we'll find something to eat, we'll find something to drink. But government won't, because its lifeblood is money, and we'll be out of that. Now, the rest of us will just pull together, and we'll take care of one another exactly like we used to before government started sticking its nose into our business. Churches and other civic organizations will form and distribute food and get together and fix someone's house or repair a leaky roof. And what will emerge is a back-to-basics mentality in a more community-driven society, which naturally leads to community-driven answers to common problems everyone faces when people live together. And then, yes, we'll probably start forming elementary government bodies, and the process will begin again. Just like the Mayans believed, most everything in nature works within cycles. Cycles of freedom, cycles of tyranny, cycles of plenty, cycles of scarcity, cycles of warm weather, cycles of cold. But I'll be here on this show. And motorcycles. Exactly. More importantly to Tory. But we'll be here on this show. We'll be fighting to pull government back to the cycle of freedom and cut away this current cycle of massive spending. All it's going to take is a little bit of work on everybody's part, and we can get that done. We also need to find some good people to run for office, and then getting the votes together to put them in and keep them honest. If they don't want to stay honest, then we can vote them out and vote in new ones and try it again. That's why I say, if you know someone who'd make a good representative, either you or a good friend or someone in your family, you need to convince them to run, and we'll rally around them and do our best to get them into office. That is, if they truly believe in the principles of Constitution and the principles that humans are born with natural rights, not rights granted by government, but rights we have merely by the fact we're human. If they believe in that, then heck, I'll do all I can to help them get into office. Anyway, we're up on the last of the show. If you want more information about this fantastic hour you just heard, you can go to facebook.com/Patrick Riggins Show. And while you're there, be sure and hit the little like button, and you'll get updates and all that stuff, good things that happen during the week. You can also go to Twitter at twitter.com. But if you look on there, you can do a search for Patrick Riggins, or it's the @ Patrick Riggins. And you can also email us at patrickriggins@gmail.com. And you can also go to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Patrick Riggins. All right, when we come back next week, we will once again be fighting for freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. We'll be back here at 2 o'clock Sunday, 2 p.m. Sunday afternoon. Tori will be here. He won't be hungover.
No, I'll be getting ready for the Super Bowl then.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Be ready to go.
I'll just be getting started.
All right. This is Patrick Riggins. We'll see you next week, and have a great week.
Join us again next week for a solid dose of truth on The Patrick Riggins Show. Every Sunday from 2 to 3 p.m. Be there.